Afternoon, welcome to the AIM virtual conference, and you're very welcome to join us for the real world analytics session. We are going to be looking at maximising your patient potential. Now, as ever, we're going to be showing you real data from across the industry, across the UK, and we're going to be talking a bit about how data analytics and data analytics methodologies can be used to drive your business in the right direction. I'm joined, of course, by Adele, who is our Chief Customer Officer. Good afternoon, Adele.
Hi, Paul. Hi, everyone.
Hello. And I don't think Adele really needs any more introduction from me, so I will pass across to her. I will just say in conclusion, if you, of course, are interested in any of the information that you've seen here today and you'd like more detail from us, or indeed you'd like to talk to us about how you could get real-world analytics within your pharmacy group, please do get in touch with us. We'll put all the contact details up at the end of this presentation, and I'll now pass across to Adele.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Okay, so basically what I wanted to have a look at today was a bit kind of around the patients. So, a lot of focus is on your items. A lot of the data that you see publicly is around items. But what's happening under the hood in relation to your patients? What's happening with your items per patient? What's the difference between this year and last year? And what was the COVID effect really? So this is a fairly big number. 20% growth in nominations across the industry in the last 12 months versus the previous year. That's a big, big number, So, the increase was 7 million. So we went from 35 million nominated patients to 42 million nominated patients in 1 year. And that is a phenomenal increase. So that's hats off to the surgeries, hats off to the pharmacies, and I suppose applause for the patients for taking the jump and diving in and becoming nominated. The other flip side of that is, the online have 70.4 percentage increase on nominations this year versus last year. That's a massive number, right? It looks a bit scary. If you look at the actual increase, it's 800,000 nominations. Now, when you think of 7 million versus 800,000, it doesn't seem like the huge, scary number that people are bouncing around. But if you think about it, those 800,000 patients were never with an online pharmacy before, and now they are. That 800,000 patients were your patients. So the increase of 7 million patients in the nominations, they were your patients beforehand, or they were community pharmacy patients. They just went from being a manual to electronic. But the 800,000 of movement onto online is a big number for an online pharmacy to move to. I suppose the idea of looking at the online is just to put a bit of perspective into where the industry is moving. There was a lot of talk today about hub and spoke. There's a lot of discussion around whether that's going to work or not, and what's the criteria and what's the legalities. But this is an interesting statistic to have a look at when you're thinking about that. So from here, I want to have a look at the year-on-year patients. So we look at the year-on-year patient growth. This number is a number that you probably won't have seen too often. You look at your own individual items on a monthly basis and your own patients on a monthly basis, and it doesn't look as scary as 16% down. But what we're looking at here is a year versus a whole year. So a pre-COVID year versus the full COVID year ending at the end of April. So we're 16% down on patients year on year. When we look at that, and to take the sting out of it, 17% of the items related to those patients that are down are related to acute patients. Okay, so these are your patients who are on your antibiotics, your one-time patients, your patients who have low patient visits and low item counts. So when you look at the items per patient. So when we look at the industry as a whole, year on year, this year, the average patients gets 26.4 items per year. Last year they got 22. So that's a 20% growth in items per patient. Yes, I can hear you saying in your head, but if the acutes are out of that, surely the average is going to increase anyway. So we had a look at that one as well. So I excluded the acutes from last year and excluded them from this year, and we're still seeing an increase. So this year's rolling item per patient is up at an average of 20.25.7 versus 21.5, which is the same 20% growth. Now, bear in mind, this is an RWA benchmark. It's based across our 1,100 odd pharmacies that we have on the RWA system. This is not an industry number, it's an RWA benchmark number, but we have a decent chunk of the industry in England to be able to come up with these numbers. Next, we're looking at the visits per patient. Again, we're seeing an increase here. Last year, we had an average of 5.59 or 5.6 visits per patient. This year, we're looking at 6.5. This is an average increase of 16.7%. Again, I hear you say, what about the acutes? If they're not there, they were going to drag the number down last year and increase the average this year. So what happens when we take the acutes out again? We're looking at a similar picture, though. We're looking at the previous year of having the patients at 5.9 visits per year, and this year 6.9. This is a very good indication that the patients are becoming more compliant because they're electronic, because they're EPS. The patients, because their prescription is electronically in the pharmacy, they're getting their medicines on time. The increase in deliveries is a huge factor on this because patients get their deliveries delivered to them, so their prescription arrives electronically and their delivery arrives at their door. Not saying that the patient is definitely compliant with the medicines when they have them in their houses, but looking at the number that we're seeing within the data, it clearly indicates that the more nominated patients you've got, the more compliant patients you've got, the more patient visits you have, and hence the more fees you've got, the more items you've got per patient. And it all wraps up into a very nice picture that the electronic and EPS is very, very good for pharmacy business. There is, on the other side, the acutes, the missing acutes, they're going to come back. So they are potential rather than really loss. They're the people who didn't get sick last year because they weren't out, or they were all wearing masks, or they were all washing their hands more. But as, the country opens up, these people are going to get sick, and we're going to see those people coming back in. Stay on your game. Keep nominating patients as they come through the door. You've still got a lot of patients out there who haven't been back in a year. Get them as they come in the door. Just a summary, so there's all these numbers in one place, okay? So year-on-year average, which way I didn't show before, our customers are up 1.2% year-on-year in items. That is fairly standard with the industry. The industry is fairly flat. We're up just a little bit, but it's a good indicator that the loss of the acute patients hasn't had a detrimental effect. The nominations growth, 20%. The average nomination percentage is now around between 94 and 96%. So there's only a small window of opportunity there to get the rest of the patients across the line. So make sure it's your pharmacy that's getting them in. The rolling items per patient, the patients that were acute last year may become repeat patients next year. They're going to increase your items per patient even further. The visits, as long as we continue to consider hub and spoke, as long as we consider delivery, and as long as the patient's EPS, we're going to get an increase in the average patient visits. Now, this will plateau eventually because, everybody will be getting delivery or everybody will be EPS. But, it's a race to the top here to make sure that you're getting the most amount of patient visits that you can achieve. The red and the black ones, yes, they look like scary numbers, but they're not. They're potential. So use it and make sure that you convert the patients to being nominated as soon as you can. That's really all I have to say for today. And it was quite a bit of a whirlwind. Thank you all for listening. And just put up here, as Paul said at the beginning, our contact details if anybody's interested in having a chat with us or having a chat about what Real World can do for your business. Please don't hesitate to give us a call.